Hello. Today we're going to be talking about how to direct, encourage, promote the belief that people in an organization have control over their destiny in a way that promotes an atmosphere of engagement, caring, commitment, and culture, otherwise known as a high-performing culture. That's what we're going to talk about today in our live Facebook meeting here. So, this is Voss Graham. I am a successful entrepreneur for the last 36 years with over 50 years of business experience. And now I'm an organizational architect helping business leaders put together organizations that can grow as a business enterprise. So let me dive in on this topic of how to build a high performing culture. One of my favorite topics to work with executive teams and companies, organizations of all sizes. There are basically 7 sub processes in this group. As you recall, this is number 10 of a 14 part series, and today again we're talking about high performance culture. How do we increase engagement within an organization so that people know that you care and that the commitment is strong for continued growth as both individuals and organizations? So here we go. First subcategory, one-on-one employee supervisor meetings. This is one of the things that I find is very interesting. Most managers dread the activity of actually sitting down and having a one-on-one meeting with employees, particularly in areas such as technology and operations and this sort of thing, because they're primarily introverts and they don't really care to have extended dialogues with people. And yet, here's a flash for you. About 50% of the population needs to have conversations with their managers in order to gain clarity and for you to understand that they know exactly what they need to do as a manager or an executive. These people, they require communication. That's the only way they can do a check and balance on what they know and what they don't know. This is the extroverted people. They have to hear themselves talk about the processes they're working, the projects they're working, whatever it is that they're working on. They need that clarity time to really grasp that they know exactly what they have to be able to do and accomplish in order to satisfy their manager or supervisor or team leader. So this is a very important process. One-on-one meetings is not designed for strictly disciplinary actions. It is a process to gain communication and understanding of others, and then being able to convert that into how to maximize the talent that the manager, supervisor, or team leader has on their team. And it's a simple process, but you have to learn how to do it. And hiding in an office with a closed door is not going to allow those one-on-one conversations to be fruitful and gain an advantage within the organization. Nor does it show to the employees, if you're having no one-on-one meetings, they just feel like that they're not important, that the machinery and the reports and etc. are more important than the human beings that are actually working within the organization. So that's a big no-no. Have regular conversations with your people to know what's going on. And it's very helpful for morale and also for learning who has talent that you may not have even realized had talent by just listening to how they talk about it. So that's the first thing. Now, departmental meetings. Departmental meetings are usually overlooked. The departmental managers don't necessarily sit down and have the group in attendance, but if they do have the group in attendance, here's what they tend to do. They give a presentation to the team, and there's no time for interaction. And if you have certain types of people on your team that are all process oriented and introverts, and you know, they are not one to engage in conversation, they will sit there and just kind of maybe look at you, but most of them just look at what's in front of them, like a piece of paper or agenda or something of that nature, and they don't make any eye contact. This is a mistake. The days of command and control drive your departmental meetings by just doing a presentation and turning, opening the door and chasing everybody out. Those have gone with the wind. It's a little Southern analogy, but they're gone with the wind. Today, the effective managers will have a departmental meeting by setting up an agenda well in advance and talking to the different team members that they've learned about certain talents or abilities to do certain things well because they've been doing one-on-ones and they understand who does what extremely well. Or even in a case of somebody is lagging and they haven't done it quite as well, well, here's an opportunity to get them out of their shell and either develop them or not. And that is to allow the team members to be participants in delivering information during the departmental meetings. So you ask the people in advance, will they cover this topic? Please cover this topic. And you cover everything you need to cover except your team is delivering the news. And again, that shows that you value the people on your team in your department, and you get, again, better progress. People are engaged. They have more conversation because they're listening to their peers and having conversation with their peers and not their boss, which in some cases it's fearful to speak up in front of the boss. So if they're just talking to a peer, that's a different element and they don't feel as fearful. And you get more progress and more information passed down. And again, remember I said something about a person who maybe is not as good as some of the other people? Well, when they have to do some research and study how to give a brief presentation on a particular topic that they have not mastered, guess what? They have to study it. They have to talk to other people that do it well. They actually show up with more information. And then what happens is they begin to implement it after that exercise. So it's a very beneficial tactic and has been used by many effective managers within their departments to gain trust, credibility within their entire team, as well as engage the team in such a way that there is a newfound high-performing culture where the peers want to take care of the peers. And that's the ultimate of what you want in departments. And then company meetings. Occasionally, you need to have a company meeting. Now, most of the time, these are just annual, and that's fine if it's just annual. But you do need to have regular correspondence. Now, whether it's in a meeting, formalized meeting or not, you can still do video presentations to the team on a monthly or quarterly basis, just reminding them of the vision of the company, where they're going, what they need to do. Or you can have brief quarterly meetings just to go over the results of the organization and the future and where you're taking it and what is going to be required of the team in the future. And again, it just shows that you have trust in the people. It engages them. It lets them know how those senior people are feeling about the organization and about them, that they matter, that you're actually carrying on conversations or meeting with them to share with them the what's happening with the organization. So they're more in the know and they have a feeling of belonging. A sense of belonging is a primary need that was discovered by Maslow and several other psychologists who've gone in and discovered that the sense of belonging is one of those traits that is not thought about or dialogue very much in executive suites, yet it's a primary feeling of being part of a larger entity. Even entrepreneurs, sole entrepreneurs, they need to have a sense of belonging. So they join organizations where they can meet with other entrepreneurs, or they get on Zoom calls or GoToMeeting calls, webinars, and they interact with other entrepreneurs, and it gives them a feeling of belonging, that they're not the only ones out there doing something. So these type of meetings are very beneficial in the long run. They need to be done, and they cannot be overlooked if you want to have a high performing culture. Now, if you're a old school command and control type, and that's all you do, fine. You need to probably shut this video off right now and not watch this anymore, because this is not for you. This is for the progressive managers of the future, and well, the present and the future, who want to really excel and drive superior results in the sense that you need to be able to 2x, 5x, 10x possibly the growth prospects for the company. That requires a different mindset than being command and control. Anyway, that's a little side spill note, but anyway, project team meetings. Projects are an interesting element in developing more teamwork and comradeship, so to speak, within the organization. Usually these project teams are cross-functional, which opens up communication lines between functional units within the company. They're very effective. Now, the key thing is, for when developing these project teams, is that you create the early ones, especially the early ones, to be successful. In other words, you give them something that's important, but has a high probability of success if they're working on it. And you follow them, you stay engaged with them, you make sure that they're moving forward. Now, along with this, project management teams today need to be familiar with the concept of sprints in Agile planning. It is the wave of the future. It is how the companies, high-performing companies particularly, are performing tasks, and particularly in the areas of software development. You've got to be doing this, or you will have major problems and issues. And as some of the software companies that I've worked with, when they were using the old Gantt waterfall projects, they kept adding bells and whistles and delaying the finalized product. So be aware of that, and just keep working on projects. Now, project team meetings, that includes total quality processes, as well as developmental innovation projects, customer service projects, any kind of team that's put together for a project, a specific project, then that is it's a key ingredient, and you must use the newer techniques in order to be ultimately successful in building high-performing cultures. Unifying employee events. A lot of times we have different groups having their own individual departmental employee events, and maybe that should be considered as a company benefit, and the company itself help to bring the teams together so that they get to have a social function or a celebration of success. If you hit all your goals at the end of the year, there should probably be a celebration, and then before presenting the new challenges for the new year. Anyway, it's just another way of getting people interacting so that they know each other, and when they need to deal with another functional area, they know who to contact, and it's safe. They can contact them, find out who to talk to, etc., to solve problems, or customer problems particularly. I know when I was in the banking industry, I spent a lot of time walking around operations, even though I was on the front line and at the desk meeting customers most of the day, I would spend time in the operations area, just walking around and visiting with the different managers and staff members. And they were very appreciative that here an officer of the bank was walking around and just talking with them. Surprise, surprise. Well, it was interesting because when I would be in manager meetings, some of the managers were complaining profusely about not being able to get certain problems corrected or fixed fast enough for their agendas. And I got to thinking, I said, I don't have that problem. I actually have people wanting to help me because I take the time to go visit them. So again, this is part of that building a high performance culture. Do you care about people? The caring element is often overlooked. If I care about people and I talk to them without a business topic, just chatting, seeing how they're doing, how their family's doing, etc., it has a tendency to elevate into a desire to want to help me and go that extra mile. And I'm not asking them to do that. They just do it. They set a different standard for performance when they're working with somebody who they consider a friend. And by the way, that's been proven by the Gallup polls. Having peers that they feel are friends or having best friends within a company seem to be very important indicators of how successful the organization will be, and particularly the culture will move towards high performance. A company health survey or a company, now there's two different ways to interpret company health surveys. Number one is a health and wellness survey. How healthy are your people? And that seems to be a very hot topic these days. There's a lot of people that are paying attention to it. A lot of organizations are paying attention to it. I know that I've worked with many companies that actually have a health club attached to their organization, or they have a free membership in one that's located in their business complex for the employees to use. And they promote it and they encourage it so that you have healthy bodies, which usually lead to healthy minds. Being healthy is an important concept in today's world. And your body can only carry your mind around for so long, but if it breaks down too much, the mind is distracted and cannot work at its most efficient level. Therefore, work levels suffer, or you have high absenteeism, you have medical insurance issues, etc. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the organizational climate health or culture. And these are usually surveys where everyone is questioned or fills out a survey based upon the same set of questions for everybody. And then that information is run through the computers, and the executive team or the managers or the division heads or whoever has authorized this check system, they can get accurate information as to how the culture is developing and what level is it. Is it strong or is it weak? How do they feel about leadership? How do they feel about opportunities? How do they feel about promotion? How do they feel about salaries and pay? All of these factors can be discovered. And I know I've been very much engaged in doing these type of surveys with my more progressive clients that want to know that information so that they can ensure that the staff is functioning at a high level and not distracted by things that should not be a distraction. In fact, these things should all be contributing to their well-being and their levels of performance. So it's a very, very helpful tool And it also can be utilized to discover where training efforts or developmental efforts need to be utilized. And I separate the two concepts of training to be more of a hand-eye skill, something that you do with a computer, or different types of skill sets that are needed to actually implement or work with equipment. The other is development. Development is where you actually do things to help the individual to grow as an individual. You build the person themselves into a better person. Now, I know that sounds kind of silly, but I know that our number one workshop for years was a self-development or personal leadership type of workshop, which had a huge ROI on investment, because we approached everything from the standpoint of how does the individual feel about certain things? Are they aware of things, and how well can they implement these things? Anywhere from goal setting to communication to creativity to rapid learning techniques. I mean, we taught all this in formalized groups, and the feedback that we got from the staff as well as the managers was absolutely amazing. And again, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that sometimes you have to work on the personal side in order for the corporate side to be totally understood. Think about it. If a person does not set goals for themselves personally, how in the world are they going to be responsible for setting goals for a company and the division, and then knowing how to achieve them if they can't do it at the personal level? That's like, it's hard to overlay that. But if you teach it at the personal level and you show the advantages and how to do it, step-by-step processes in some cases, then they can transfer that same skill over to the corporate side and make it happen. And it was extremely beneficial for the organizations that chose to be progressive and work with their people at a high level. Now, the final area is conflict resolution and diversity training. These are a couple of areas that conflict resolution has been around forever, and trying to figure out why people engage in conflict is an important element. And strangely enough, I've discovered that probably 70% of conflict is due to I was going to say personality, but it's not personality. It's actually a style difference. We as people judge others based on how we do things. So we're choosing to judge them on the style that we prefer. And see, style is basically hardwired into your brain from birth. So you've had that for a long time, and you judge others based upon that. Particularly if you do a certain job and you expect other people to do the job the same way, which is I find a lot of managers feel that way. They need to be able to break that down and say, okay, wait a minute. Some of the population does not have my style at all. They just are not that way. They're not built that way. That doesn't necessarily mean they're evil or bad or doing something unto me. It just means they're doing it the way they normally do it, just like the way you would normally do it. And sometimes those are in conflict. That creates me-you conflicts. And all companies have to do in most cases is to clear the air on the style differences, educate everybody on teams relative to style differences, and surprise, surprise, conflict goes down dramatically. And I could give you case study after case study, entire teams turning in a manager who was the only one who was opposite from the entire team. They didn't like him because he was different and he was demanding, and they didn't think demanding was cool. They were indirect and he was direct. There were all kinds of, he was fast paced. They were slow, and not intellectually. They were brilliant people, but they preferred to take their time in making decisions by analyzing everything under the moon and the sun before taking action. And he was just the opposite. Get a few details and he was off to the races. Well, that created issues, and they were turning him into HR about every week. And then when they discovered the differences in style, suddenly it was okay. And we started talking about how this manager was very beneficial for their role relative to operating with certain teams or cross-functional teams that they had to interact with on a regular basis, and they were lousy at. Well, he basically took down those barriers because he could relate to them in the direct and demanding way that this other team was needing. So diversity training, again, is something it's hot. It's a hot topic. It's running through organizations rapidly, and I admit that there's a lot of diversity. As a boomer, I have to tell you that I've had to work on a lot of the diversity issues as far as differences. I still have an issue, or not a big issue, but I have difficulty understanding certain people speak with certain dialects or accents. That's just a physical issue, not necessarily a mental issue. But it is part of diversity. I have to accept the fact that they're just who they are. It's not they're doing it unto me or for any of those reasons. They're just doing it because that's their culture. And I think we need to pay more attention to cultures and what is acceptable for that culture, and then compare it to ours. I've defended I have defended people from being abused by certain other people who I considered to be just absolute flat morons by their statements and their actions, and just let them know that they're the problem, not the person who can't speak English. And anyway, that's another personal encounter that I observed and took action on because I'm direct. All right. Well, that's it. I want you to understand that culture development is something that the leadership team is responsible for. You have to develop an environment where the culture is developed into what you want. Now, a lot of times that is totally related to how much engagement that you have with your people. Do you care about your people? Are you committed to their well-being? And do you have concern over any deficiencies that they may have that need to be corrected? And you're genuinely empathetic to these people and helping them to get better. I mean, think about it. Our purpose as a business is to get you to the next level. Well, that includes everybody. Everybody's at a level, and then how do you get them to the desired level? And that's what we do. We close that gap faster than they can do it by themselves by showing them how to do certain things extremely well. So with that, again, I'm not selling anything at the moment. This is strictly for your education. This is part 10 of a 14-part series. I want to thank you for watching my extendedly, terribly long videos, but I felt it's necessary to share this type of information so you could get an idea of what you may need to do to improve your own organization. Because the major business processes, if one of them or multiple ones are broke, they are the source of problems within your organization, why you're not reaching the growth goals that you have committed to. And that's why I'm going through each of the 14 major business processes and the sub-processes within each group so that you'll have an understanding of what you can actually discover and remedy yourself if necessary, or to call upon others to help you. So with that, I thank you. I want to wish you a very successful week. It's about Monday after, actually almost Monday evening here. It's roughly, I'm closing at 6. So you have a great week. Thank you very much, and keep on watching. There's more coming.